The mining survey ship Earth's Fortune drifted silently through the star-speckled void, its sensors probing the unmarked planet below. Captain James Walker stood at the bridge's main viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the purple-tinged world slowly rotate beneath them. The initial scans had shown promising results, rare Earth elements in concentrations higher than anything found in their solar system. Tom Miller worked in the engine room, checking the ship's power systems as they maintained orbit. His tools floated in organized clusters around him, held in place by magnetic fields as he hummed an old spacer's tune. 20 years of experience had taught him every sound and vibration of a ship's engine, and Earth's Fortune purred like a well-fed cat under his care. The first warning came as a slight disturbance on their long-range scanners. "Captain," called out the sensor operator, "I'm picking up an energy signature. It's huge." Walker turned from the viewport, his expression serious but calm. Years of frontier exploration had taught him to treat every unknown as a potential threat. The alien ship emerged from behind the planet's largest moon, its sleek crystalline surface reflecting the local star's light in rainbow patterns. It was beautiful, but that beauty held an edge of menace, like a polished knife catching the sun. The vessel dwarfed Earth's Fortune, its elegant form suggesting technology far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Walker opened standard first contact channels, broadcasting peace signals in every known format. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth mining survey ship Earth's Fortune. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The crew waited, hearts pounding, as the message repeated on all frequencies. The response came not in words but in action. The alien ship's surface shifted, panels sliding away to reveal what were unmistakably weapon ports. "All hands. Battle stations." Walker's command rang through the ship, but he knew their small vessel stood no chance against such advanced technology. "Begin emergency jump preparations." In the engine room, Tom Miller's hands flew over the controls. The jump drive needed 3 minutes to charge. 3 minutes they didn't have. He watched the power levels climb with agonizing slowness as the first shots from the alien vessel lit up space around them. The shield impacts threw crew members against walls and consoles. "Shields at 40%. Someone shouted from the bridge. Walker ordered evasive maneuvers, but the alien ship predicted their every move with terrifying accuracy. Another hit rocked the ship, and emergency lights flooded the corridors with red warning glares. 2 minutes to jump capability. Miller's voice crackled over the comm. He saw the problem before anyone else. The power coupling was destabilizing under the strain. If it blew, they'd lose jump capability entirely. There was only one way to prevent it, but the radiation in the chamber would be lethal. Without hesitation, Miller sealed the engine room doors. "Captain," he called out, his voice steady despite knowing what came next, "I'm going to manually stabilize the coupling. Get our people home." Before Walker could respond, Miller had already removed his radiation shield and reached into the chamber. The pain was immediate and searing, but Miller's hands remained steady as he worked. Through the engine room's small viewport, he could see the alien ship firing again. Their shields were about to fail. His fingers, already blistering from radiation, made the final connections. "Jump drive charge." The bridge crew's shout carried a note of desperate hope. Walker looked at the engine room camera feed, seeing Miller slumped over the controls but knowing his sacrifice had given them their chance at survival. Jump initiated. The familiar twist of space-time pulled at their bodies as the Earth's Fortune tore itself away from normal space, leaving behind the alien vessel and carrying with it evidence of humanity's first contact with hostile intelligent life. They also carried something else, the first casualty in what would become a much larger conflict. As the ship streaked through jump space toward Earth, Walker recorded his official log. His voice remained professional, but those who knew him could hear the steel beneath his words. "Mining survey ship Earth's Fortune reporting. We have encountered hostile alien life. They fired without provocation. Engineer Tom Miller gave his life to ensure our escape. The aliens demonstrated technology far beyond our current capabilities. They clearly believed us weak. They believed us primitive. They will learn how wrong they were. The United Defense Council chamber fell silent as the recording ended. The final moments of Tom Miller's life, captured by the ship's internal cameras, faded from the massive display screen. Admiral Mary Stone stood before the assembled representatives, her gray uniform bearing the combined insignia of Earth's unified military forces. Her next words would shape humanity's response to its first alien threat. The attack on the Earth's fortune was not a mistake or a misunderstanding, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Our analysts have decoded part of the alien ship's transmissions. They call themselves the Bright Minds Collective, and they have been systematically removing what they call lesser species from the galaxy. Murmurs filled the chamber. On the screens behind her, images from the ship's databanks showed the alien vessel's devastating weaponry. The council members' faces reflected a mix of fear and anger as they processed the implications. Humanity wasn't just facing a single hostile ship. They were facing an entire civilization that saw them as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. But they made a critical mistake, Admiral Stone continued, tapping her tablet. New images appeared on the screen. Close-up scans of the alien ship's hull, its weapon systems, and energy readings. They assumed that because we haven't spread beyond our solar system, we are primitive. They didn't bother to hide their technology from us, believing we couldn't possibly understand it. That arrogance will cost them dearly. She gestured to a man sitting in the front row. Dr. Jack Peters, head of Earth's Advanced Technology Division, has already made several breakthroughs based on the scans from Earth's fortune. Doctor, please explain what you found. Dr. Peters stood, his worn lab coat contrasting with the formal attire of the council members. Their shield technology is advanced, but it follows predictable patterns. We've identified frequencies that could disrupt it. More importantly, we found that their entire technological approach is highly structured and inflexible. They haven't faced a real challenge in centuries, maybe longer. They've stopped innovating. The chamber erupted in discussion as Dr. Peters displayed his findings. The alien technology, while advanced, was built on rigid principles that hadn't changed in generations. The bright minds had become victims of their own success, seeing no need to adapt or improve. Admiral Stone raised her hand for silence. We've also intercepted their communications about us. They describe humans as barely worth noting, and our technology as amusingly primitive. They expect us to either hide in our system or face immediate extinction. They don't expect us to fight back. They don't expect us to understand their technology, and they certainly don't expect us to improve upon it. The main screen showed a new image, plans for a weapon that combined Earth's latest innovations with reverse-engineered alien technology. This is Project Lightning Strike. Within 3 months, we can have a prototype ready. Within 6 months, we can begin full production. The bright minds think they're dealing with simple primitives. Let's show them exactly what happens when humans are backed into a corner. One of the council members stood up. The aliens killed one of us, just one, thinking we would cower in fear. How do we respond? Admiral Stone's smile was hard as steel. We show them that humanity doesn't take kindly to bullies, no matter how advanced they think they are. We show them that killing Tom Miller was the biggest mistake they could have made. We show them that Earth isn't just another primitive world to be cleared for their expansion. We show them that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight back against impossible odds. The council chamber erupted in unanimous approval. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting, innovating, and overcoming challenges. Now, faced with their greatest threat ever, they would show the galaxy why you should never underestimate humans or their response to losing one of their own. As the council dispersed to begin preparations, Admiral Stone looked at the final image of the alien ship. "You thought we were primitive," she whispered. "You thought we were weak. You're about to learn just how wrong you were, and you're going to regret ever hearing the word human. The massive underground facility hummed with activity as thousands of engineers, scientists, and military personnel worked with single-minded purpose. 60 days had passed since the attack on the Earth's fortune, and humanity's response was taking shape in facilities like this one across the globe. Dr. Robert Wilson stood in his lab, dark circles under his eyes, as he studied the holographic display of the alien shield technology. Coffee cups littered his workspace, testament to countless sleepless nights. His team had made breakthrough after breakthrough, but time was running out. Intelligence suggested the Bright Minds Collective would return within months to cleanse Earth's solar system. Run the simulation again, he told his computer. The hologram showed their latest weapon design striking a replica of the alien shields. This time, instead of being deflected, the energy pulse created a microscopic fluctuation in the shield's pattern. Wilson's tired eyes lit up. That's it. Get me Admiral Stone immediately. Across the facility, in a converted aircraft hangar, test pilot Mike Brown climbed into the cockpit of Earth's newest fighter craft. The ship looked nothing like traditional human designs. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on. The technology was reversed engineered from the alien ship's scans, but the tactics it would employ were purely human. Testing stealth systems, Mike said into his helmet mic. The ship's outer layer shifted, and suddenly it was nearly invisible to the naked eye. But unlike the alien technology that inspired it, this system could adapt and change patterns on the fly, something the rigid thinking of the Bright Minds had never considered. In orbital shipyards, dozens of new vessels took shape. They weren't as large or impressive as the alien ship had been, but they didn't need to be. Each one incorporated lessons learned from centuries of human warfare. Lessons about guerrilla tactics, about using an enemy's strength against them, about the advantage of being underestimated. Admiral Stone walked through the facility's main command center, where massive screens tracked the progress of humanity's preparations. One screen showed the production of the new shield-piercing weapons. Another displayed training exercises where pilots learned to exploit the weaknesses in alien combat patterns. A third showed the growing fleet of stealth ships, each one capable of striking hard and vanishing before the enemy could respond. "Status report," she commanded. The young officer beside her pulled up the latest figures on his tablet. "Project Lightning Strike is ahead of schedule. Dr. Wilson's team just achieved shield penetration in simulations. The stealth fleet will be ready in 3 weeks. Ground-based defenses are operational at all major cities. The lunar bases have been fortified, and Mars colony is fully hardened against attack." Stone nodded, but her attention was drawn to another screen, this one showing civilian preparations. Every nation on Earth had united against the common threat. Old enemies now worked together, sharing resources and technology. Humanity had spent its history fighting itself, but now, faced with extinction, they had found a unity that their enemies couldn't comprehend. In a secure room deep within the facility, intelligence officers studied intercepted alien communications. The Bright Minds remained completely unaware of Earth's preparations. Their messages still spoke of humans as primitives, barely worth noting. They expected to find a cowering species waiting to be eliminated. Instead, they would find humanity at its finest, united, prepared, and ready to fight. Dr. Wilson burst into the command center, his lab coat wrinkled and his hair disheveled. "Admiral, we did it. The shield penetration technology works, and we found something else. Their shields aren't just vulnerable to our new weapons. They're completely blind to them. They won't even see the hits coming until it's too late." Admiral Stone allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had killed Tom Miller, thinking they were simply swatting an insignificant bug. Instead, they had awakened humanity's full potential. Every person in this facility, every soldier training with the new weapons, every scientist working on countermeasures, they all shared a single thought. The Bright Minds Collective was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology, but in its boundless ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome. The Bright Minds mining station hung in space like a shining jewel, its crystalline structures catching starlight in rainbow patterns. The alien workers inside went about their tasks with practiced efficiency, their movements as structured and predictable as their technology. None of them noticed the slight distortion in space as 5 human ships dropped out of stealth just outside their sensor range. Mike Brown sat in the lead ship's cockpit, his heart steady despite the historic moment. This would be humanity's first deliberate strike against the aliens who had deemed them unworthy of existence. "All ships, sound off," he whispered into his comm. 4 quiet acknowledgments came back. They had trained for this moment for months, practicing until every move was perfect. "Remember," Admiral Stone's voice came through their secure channel from Earth Command. "This isn't about destruction. This is about sending a message. Hit your targets and get out. Show them what humanity can do." The alien station's shields hummed with power, an invisible barrier that had protected them from meteors and radiation for centuries. The aliens had never bothered to update them. Why fix what wasn't broken? That assumption was about to cost them dearly. Mike gave the signal. 5 human ships accelerated from different directions, each one targeting a specific point on the station. The aliens' first warning was a series of alarms as human vessels suddenly appeared on their sensors, far closer than should have been possible. Their second warning was the flash of Project Lightning Strike weapons powering up. The new weapons punched through the alien shields as if they weren't there. Precise beams of energy struck key points on the station's surface, specifically targeting their power distribution network. The aliens rushed to battle stations, but their responses were too rigid, too predictable. By the time they managed to power up their weapons, the human ships had already completed their attack run and vanished back into stealth. Inside the station, chaos erupted. Systems that had worked flawlessly for generations suddenly failed. The aliens frantically tried to follow their emergency protocols, but nothing in their manuals covered this type of attack. Their shields had been penetrated with ease, their sensors hadn't detected the approaching ships until it was too late, and their mighty weapons hadn't even fired a single shot. Mike allowed himself a grim smile as his ship's sensors showed the results. The station's power grid was crippled, its communication arrays destroyed. The aliens were alive but helpless, unable to call for help or pursue their attackers. More importantly, they were confused and frightened, emotions their supposedly superior minds weren't used to feeling. "First strike successful," he reported back to Earth Command. "All ships accounted for. No casualties, no collateral damage." Message delivered. Admiral Stone's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Excellent work. Phase 2 begins now. All ships proceed to secondary targets." Across the sector, other human strike teams emerged from stealth near different alien installations. Each one struck with surgical precision, targeting vital systems and disappearing before the aliens could mount an effective response. Earth's intelligence teams had studied the Bright Minds' response patterns thoroughly. They knew exactly how long it would take the aliens to react, and they were always gone before that moment arrived. In the Bright Minds Central Command, alerts flooded in from across their territory. Mining stations disabled, communication relays destroyed, supply lines disrupted. The supposedly primitive humans had not only developed weapons that could penetrate their shields, but had also mastered stealth technology and shown tactical brilliance that left the aliens reeling. One of the alien commanders stared at the damage reports in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered in his own language. "They were nothing. Primitives. We killed one of them. They should be hiding, cowering in fear. Instead, His voice trailed off as new reports arrived, showing more attacks, more facilities disabled, more evidence that humanity was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Back on his ship, Mike prepared for their next strike. The aliens had killed Tom Miller, thinking humans were weak. Now they were learning the truth. That humanity's strength lay not in their technology, but in their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. This was just the beginning, and the bright minds were about to learn exactly why killing a human had been their gravest mistake. The Grand Chamber of the Bright Minds Collective's High Council had never seen such disorder. The crystalline walls that usually reflected serene patterns of light now pulsed with angry red warnings. Emergency alerts from across their territory flashed on massive displays as more and more of their facilities went dark. The High Commander's voice shook with barely controlled rage as he addressed the council. These humans, these primitives, they aren't following any known combat doctrine. Our predictive algorithms are useless. They strike from nowhere, ignore our shields, and disappear before we can respond. He gestured at a tactical display, showing yet another mining facility going dark. They're not even trying to destroy our ships or kill our people. They're humiliating us. On the other side of the galaxy, a small human strike team demonstrated exactly why the aliens were so frustrated. Their ships slipped through the Bright Minds defense network using routes the aliens had deemed too risky to patrol. The human vessels shifted their stealth patterns constantly, making it impossible for alien sensors to establish a baseline for detection. Captain Lisa Reed watched from her command chair as her ship approached another alien facility. This one was different, a prestigious research center where the Bright Minds developed their superior technology. Remember, she told her crew, we're not here to destroy. We're here to educate. The strike was precisely timed. Her ships appeared just long enough to bypass the alien shields and inject a simple computer virus into their systems. Within minutes, every screen in the facility began displaying the same message, translated into the aliens' language. Greetings from the primitives. Thank you for the technology lessons. Here's one in return. The aliens watched in horror as their own security systems turned against them. Doors opened and closed randomly. Environmental controls went haywire. Their perfectly ordered facility descended into chaos. Not a single alien was harmed, but their pride took a devastating hit as they realized these primitives had not only understood their technology, but had found ways to improve upon it. Back in the High Council chamber, reports of similar attacks flooded in. The humans weren't just striking military targets anymore. They were attacking the very foundation of the Bright Mind Society, their belief in their own superiority. More concerning still, other species that the collective had dismissed as primitive were starting to resist, inspired by humanity's success. How? One council member demanded. How are they doing this? We spent centuries perfecting our technology. They've had access to it for mere months. The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior analyst who had been studying human history. They think differently, he explained, his voice trembling as he addressed the council. We build on what works, perfect it, standardize it. They look at our perfect systems and ask what if we did it completely differently. They take risks we would never consider. They try things that shouldn't work and somehow make them work anyway. Admiral Stone's voice crackled through the speakers of every device in the chamber, a feat that should have been impossible given their security protocols. You killed one of us, she said calmly. You thought we would cower. Instead, you united us. Every human on Earth is working to show you exactly why that was a mistake. We don't want to destroy you. We just want you to understand. The transmission ended, leaving the alien council in stunned silence. Their sensors detected no human ships nearby, yet somehow they had penetrated the heart of the collective's government. The humans weren't fighting a war of destruction. They were fighting a war of education, teaching the Bright Minds painful lessons about underestimating other species. A new alert flashed across the screens. Another human strike force had appeared, this time targeting the collective's central banking system. The aliens could only watch as centuries of carefully ordered financial records were rearranged into a pattern that, when viewed from orbit, formed a simple human smile face. The High Commander slumped in his chair. We killed one human, he muttered. One. And in return, They're not just defeating us. They're completely dismantling everything we believed about ourselves. And they're doing it without killing anyone. He looked around at his fellow council members, seeing the same realization in their eyes. We may have made a terrible mistake. The once mighty fleet of the Bright Minds Collective drifted in disarray above their homeworld. The ship's crystalline hulls no longer shone with their usual brilliance. Power conservation protocols had dimmed them to a dull gleam. 3 months of human strikes had shattered their supply lines, disrupted their economy, and broken their confidence. Inside the fleet's flagship, Admiral Stone's latest message played on repeat, a psychological weapon more effective than any bomb. Your economy is crippled. Your people are losing faith. And still, not a single one of your citizens has died by our hands. Ask yourselves, if we can do this much without trying to kill you, what could we do if we actually wanted you dead? The alien admiral watched his crew's morale crumble further with each replay. Rebellion was spreading through the ranks. Junior officers questioned orders, asking why they should follow leaders who had so catastrophically underestimated humanity. The rigid hierarchy that had served them for centuries was breaking down. On 1,000 worlds across their territory, the Bright Minds' carefully ordered society descended into chaos. Human strike teams had copied their banking records before scrambling them, then released evidence of corruption among the highest ranks. The supposedly perfect leadership had been skimming resources for centuries, hoarding wealth while preaching superiority. Dr. Robert Wilson, now operating from a forward command ship, monitored the effects of humanity's latest weapon. It wasn't a device that destroyed shields or disabled ships. Instead, it broadcast the truth. Every alien communication network had been hacked to show proof of their leaders' hypocrisy, their military's failures, and most devastatingly, their complete misunderstanding of the species they had dismissed as primitive. The Collective's response fleet tried to maintain formation, but their tactics were predictable. Human ships danced through their lines, appearing and disappearing at will. Each strike precisely targeted the ships of officers known to be corrupt, disabling their engines and leaving them stranded. The humans hadn't fired a single lethal shot, yet they were winning more completely than any traditional victory could achieve. Mike Brown led another strike team through the chaos, his ships moving with practiced ease. Look at their formation, he told his squadron. They're still trying to follow their standard combat protocols. They still haven't learned. His ships slipped through gaps that the aliens' tactical doctrine said couldn't exist, proving yet again that humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to ignore the impossible. In the Collective's capital city, riots broke out as more truth broadcasts reached the civilian population. The carefully maintained myth of superiority crumbled as citizens learned how their leaders had stumbled into a conflict with a species far more adaptable than themselves. The humans' refusal to kill even in victory stood in stark contrast to the Collective's policy of casually eliminating lesser species. Captain Lisa Reed's ship captured transmissions from the alien leadership bunker. The High Commander was in a state of panic, watching his perfect society tear itself apart. How do we stop them? He screamed at his advisors. They're everywhere and nowhere. They know all our weaknesses. They're teaching our own people to question everything. The answer came from an unexpected source. A young alien scientist, part of a growing reform movement, addressed the emergency council. We can't stop them, she said simply. They've already won. Not by destroying us, but by showing us the flaws in our own society. They've taught us more about ourselves in 3 months than we learned in centuries of supposed superiority. Admiral Stone received the first surrender message as her command ship orbited Earth. The humans had achieved what the Bright Minds thought impossible, total victory without a single enemy casualty. They had turned the aliens' own technology against them, used their rigid thinking as a weapon, and dismantled their society not through destruction, but through revelation. The message was simple. We surrender unconditionally. We killed one human, thinking we were superior. You showed us our mistake, not through revenge, but through education. We request permission to send diplomats to discuss peace terms. Stone looked at the message, then at the picture of Tom Miller that hung in her command center. "They killed one of us," she said quietly, "and in doing so, they learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or technology. It's our ability to unite, adapt, and overcome. And most importantly, our ability to win without becoming what we hate." The Grand Hall of the United Nations had never hosted such an unusual gathering. The alien diplomats from the Bright Minds Collective sat on one side, their crystalline environmental suits dull to show humility. On the other side sat Earth's representatives, including Admiral Stone and the core team that had engineered humanity's bloodless victory. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the alien suits in ways that would have once been deliberately impressive. Now they had chosen to appear as plain as possible. Their leader, formerly known as the High Commander but now calling himself simply First Speaker, stood to address the assembly. "6 months ago, we killed one of your people," he began, his words translated by the new communication systems developed during the conflict. "We thought we were removing a primitive species that posed no challenge. Instead, we learned the hardest lesson any civilization can face, that true advancement comes not from technological superiority, but from the ability to think differently." Admiral Stone watched from her seat, remembering the day the Earth's fortune had limped home with news of Tom Miller's death. On the wall behind the speaker's podium hung a large photograph of Miller, his friendly smile now known across 2 civilizations as the face that sparked an unprecedented change in galactic society. "Your response to our aggression was unlike anything in our records," the first speaker continued. "You could have destroyed us. Our analysis shows that by the 2nd month, you had the capability to bypass all our defenses. Instead, you chose to teach us, to show us our own flaws, to make us question our assumptions. No species has ever shown such humanity." The peace terms were displayed on the giant screens. The Bright Minds Collective would abandon its policy of destroying lesser species. They would provide reparations not just to Earth, but to all the civilizations they had harmed. Most importantly, they would work with humans to establish a new galactic council where all species would have an equal voice. Dr. Robert Wilson, sitting beside Admiral Stone, looked at the technical cooperation agreements with interest. The aliens had offered to share all their advanced technology. In return, they wanted to learn how humans approached problems so differently. They wanted to understand how a species could advance so quickly, adapt so readily, and think so far outside established patterns. Mike Brown and Lisa Reed, now recognized as heroes across human space, sat with their fellow strike team leaders. Their tactics would be studied for generations, not just by humans, but by the Bright Minds themselves. They had proved that victory didn't require destruction, that superiority didn't mean infallibility, and that the most powerful weapon was the ability to make your enemy question their own assumptions. In memory of Tom Miller, the first speaker announced, "We propose the establishment of the Miller Institute for Interspecies Cooperation. Its purpose will be to ensure that no civilization ever again makes the mistake of judging another's potential based on their current level of technology." The assembly erupted in approval. Earth's representatives stood to accept the terms, not as vengeful victors, but as teachers who had turned enemies into students. The aliens' rigid beliefs in superiority had been replaced by a genuine desire to learn from the species they had once dismissed. Outside the UN building, crowds gathered to watch the proceedings on massive screens. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with alien visitors from a dozen worlds that had previously lived in fear of the collective. Now they all shared a common understanding that humanity's response to aggression had changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Stone finally rose to speak. "6 months ago, you killed one of us," she said, looking directly at the alien delegation. "You thought you were swatting an insignificant bug. Instead, you learned that humanity's strength lies not in our weapons, but in our diversity of thought. Not in our technology, but in our creativity. Not in our power to destroy, but in our choice to teach." She gestured to Miller's photo. One death could have started a war of vengeance. Instead, it sparked a revolution of understanding. Tom Miller's legacy will not be measured in the enemies he helped us defeat, but in the minds he helped us open. The galaxy now knows what happens when you kill a human. We don't just seek revenge, we force you to grow, to learn, to become better than you were. As the peace treaty was signed, a new chapter in galactic history began. The species that had once sought to eliminate humanity now worked to emulate its best qualities. The death of one human had not only prevented the deaths of countless others, it had given birth to a new era of cooperation and understanding across the stars.